Welcome inside episode 463 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan in the heart of our nation's capital in Ottawa, Ontario, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, and we made it. It's the final day of 2021.
Can't believe we made it here, Ross. It has been a wild calendar year with some good memories, some bad memories, and some players that we have different opinions of now than we did at the start of this year. And Ross, we have a game recap and a game preview for the Belleville and Ottawa Senators. Hockey is back for your Sens fans.
We'll see for how long. Ottawa's schedule could cut down from 15 to 4 games if Canada does postpone all the games that are meant to be up north, especially like that road trip too. We'll get into all that. Plus, you mentioned the year in review. We started it yesterday, so go listen to part 1 yesterday. Then today, not only are we going to get into the good, bad, and ugly that was the calendar year 2021, but I also want to ask you who the most obscure Ottawa Senator was. There are a bunch of guys to pick from. So stay tuned for all that and a prospect update. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Today is Friday, December 31st, and Pilsy, Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year to you and all Sens fans out there as we're doing our last show of the year. And 2021 has been a wild year, not just in general, but specifically for the Ottawa Senators. And we got a lot to get into.
Not only did we see Tim Stützle make his NHL debut and begin blossoming into a superstar. How long ago does it feel that they introduced the black and white 2D jerseys going back to their roots? Now, that was on draft day, October 2020, but these beauties only first stepped on the ice January 15th, 2021. What an unbelievable way to start the year. And really, we don't take it in enough just how they went from the worst to the best uniforms in the league.
Yeah, that was a massive move. And I mean, Ross, I feel like for years we had been on the trail. Like, I think there was one time where we saw like a leaked photo of a Sens toque in a 2D jersey like 2 years ago, and we lost our minds. And we're trying to see where are they putting the 2D logo on stuff in the building, like who's using it, when is it coming? So for it to finally be here, and for them to, graphic designers will say they made major changes, but for the most part, they made minor changes. They gave us what we wanted, is what I'm trying to say. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel here. They just gave us what we wanted, and I love it.
It looks so sharp, but there were some not so great moments as well. We're going to save that for a little bit. We want to start with some positivity going into the new year, and what better way to be positive than the fact that the Ottawa Senators are going to play a hockey game. Knock on wood. Everything's subject to change because we're still about 29 hours away from it when we're recording right now on Friday morning just before 9 a.m. And it's hockey night in Canada. It's Ottawa. It's Toronto. You absolutely love to start 2022. What do you expect from a team? Both teams haven't played in about 2 weeks.
It's going to be very interesting, that's for sure. And then
hammer the over at Bet Online.
Yes, that's what I was going to say as well. I mean, Leafs Sens, you can usually count on the over, especially Marley's Sens. You can definitely count on the over. Hit that one last night, obviously. But I think it's going to be a very interesting game because not only have these two teams not played in a while, but like you said, like they're in the spotlight. Hockey Night in Canada, Battle of Ontario, first meeting of the year of the 2022 year. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. I think maybe we'll see a feeling out process to start things, just as if it was like a new season essentially. And then things are going to ramp up once the first goal kind of trickles in.
I cannot wait to see it. It's been too long since the Senators fell in overtime to the Philadelphia Flyers after that brutal first period. They were able to stabilize, and then they had that, tough play in overtime. 2-on-1 goes the other way, and that's all she wrote. But the Senators are 5-2-1 in their last 8 games. So there is a bit of optimism when it comes to the play on the ice. A lot of pessimism about how often they're going to be able to play in January. I mentioned that off the top. So we'll see. But as of now, the Senators are scheduled to play in Toronto on January 1st on Saturday, and then back in Ottawa on Monday against the Minnesota Wild. They had a great game against the Wild earlier this season. 5-4 OT loss. Kirill Kaprizov had the winner in that one. But this was more of a macro show, Pills. Here, do you want to touch? We'll wait to talk about Belleville at the end of the year. I want to get right into our year in review, Pillsy. 2021, the Sens played 84 games. We know the record was not too great. Only 32 wins, 45 losses, and 7 OT losses. Which of those 84 games was the most memorable for you? I'm putting this on a brand new tee.
Well, if you're tossing it off to me with this easy one, I'm taking the low-hanging fruit, and it starts with it was 5-1. I mean, does it get better than that? I think the best part of this, too, is I can go back in my memory, and I can see all the Leafs fans tweeting when it was 5-1. The confidence, the chirps being thrown at Sens fans. And I think everybody in the hockey universe was thinking the same thing, like, Leafs fans, you can't be cheering for your team like this until the game is over. We all know the choke artists you guys are. And that's I forget, was it a record for the biggest comeback in franchise history? I know there's so many records that happened that night. Like, it was just the biggest downfall. Like, sure, it's just a regular season game, but as far as a hockey game goes, you cannot screw up worse than that. Like, that was absolutely brutal. And the Sens come out on top, so you gotta love it.
Yes, that was the first time in Senators franchise history that they overcame a 4-goal deficit. Austin Matthews had 2 goals. Travis Boyd even got on the board. Joe Thornton scored. And then it was all downhill from them. It was a Nick Paul shorthanded goal with 9 seconds left in the second period that seemed so harmless at the time.
Yeah.
But oh no, it began a ripple effect that allowed the Sens to score 3 third-period goals, including Evgeny Dadonov tying the game with 2 minutes left and then scoring on a breakaway in overtime. Poetic that Nick Paul gets the assist on the OT winner, as he was the one that started the comeback. And an underrated part of that game too, Pilsy, the first career goal for Artem Zub. It was on a breakaway. And I bet you it didn't surprise any of the guys on the bench because they saw his hands in the shootout in practice. So they were like, oh, this is old hat for Artem Zub.
Oh my God, yeah. That moment was just crazy. Coming out of the penalty box, Zub with the breakaway, he gets a nice deke. And that picture from I think it's a side angle or from like behind the net is just so epic of him starting his deke with the Leafs player chasing him. Oh,
and the lights on it are unbelievable. Exactly. You can see that picture in the replies. We put out a tweet wishing, I don't know if National Geographic paid any attention, but that should be the photo of the year. It looks like, The Last Supper, how there's just so much going on and you have to look at each part individually. That's this photo. How about Brady Tkachuk falling off the bench after Dadonov's winner? He's like backwards ballerina. It's so funny. And then if you zoom in real close, Joe Thornton and Ilya Mikheyev's face on the Leafs bench, like just over the shoulder. Oh, no. That one's for the record book. So that was awesome, man. Especially the day after Valentine's Day. You just love that. Was that your number one favorite moment? I know you said favorite game, but overall.
That wasn't my favorite moment. No, my favorite moment, and this is now a core memory for me, Ross. Like, this is a moment that will last with me for the rest of my life. It was, and I know we talked about Ian Mendes' article and we said we weren't going to try to cherry pick it too much, but spoiler alert, his number one was also my number one. When Brady Tkachuk walked into the building at the home opener to start this season, and he was on that little platform and he was pumping the crowd up, and the Brady chants, because we had been to that preseason game, but we hadn't been to like a full live atmosphere event. Yeah, like a legit one where it felt right. And that just felt so right. And then Brady coming out, and watch that behind the scenes video of the crowd chanting his name. You can feel the emotion. You can feel the energy. Like, I don't know. It just felt great to be in unison with a crowd of like-minded people for the first time in years, and chanting Brady and seeing him do the shimmy and everything. Like, it was just so perfect. So that, I know it's a cheesy and easy one, but that was an amazing moment.
Well, I talked yesterday about how my second favorite moment was that night in general. And I
Yes.
just lump it all together. That was great. But the vibe in the arena and in the parking lot, having beers with all the boys there in the tent, it was just an unbelievable day to be an Ottawa Senators fan. The cherry on top, getting Brady signed in the building. You saw the smile from Timmy when they had that video going on. And how about jumping out to a 3-0 lead? Oh, a big lead. Sens, Leafs. Oh, but this time the Sens were able to hold on, although it did get a little dicey.
Close, yeah.
They held on and got that 3-2 victory on opening night. We got plenty of more great moments and not so great moments. I also want to get into most obscure Senator, and this is a great question. Who changed our opinion of them the most in 2021? Remember, this is the calendar year, so it's 2 full seasons, but this is a rare case where 2 full seasons is 1 season. 84 games the Senators played. So all that coming up, but I need to power up for this. So I am grabbing a Built Bar. Of course I'm grabbing a Built Bar. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. I love Built Bars. And now I can go to BuiltBar.com or Built.com if I really want to be short with it, because it'll take you right to where you need to go. And that'll bring you to a 15% off your next order at BuiltBar.com with the promo code Locked On. It's on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. Let me tell you about Built Bars real quick, like you don't already know. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, 100% covered in chocolate, soft, easy to chew, and they're also great for the health-conscious guy. I know when I say candy bar, everyone goes, oh, no, it must not be good for you. These help you indulge but lose or maintain weight at the same time. That's because Built Bars are low in calorie, low in sugar, but they're high in protein and fiber. So try them for yourself. The Mix Box is a great treat for yourself or somebody you love. Built Bars are the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. So go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCKED15. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. All right, Pillsy. So we've nailed the day after the Valentine's Day massacre, we'll call it. The comeback kids erasing a 5-1 deficit to beat the Leafs 6-5. We discussed beating the Leafs again 3-2 on opening night.
Are you sensing a theme here?
However, just as important was the Brady Tkachuk contract extension. That in itself deserves a spot on our best moments in 2021, just as well as Drake Batherson. Those two committing long-term. Can you put into words just how important that is for the confidence of this fan base and players around the league who maybe, because at some point you got to make trades or get free agents to come in and join the team, but they're seeing that something special is getting built here.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, Ross, the most important thing was the fans, right? Because we've been through this whole song and dance where the Sens draft and develop well. They build a core group of players, and then the players' second or third contracts come around and they get shipped out. So it was so important for management to put their money where their mouth was and sign these guys long-term, not cheap out on deals. Make sure that the guys are happy and they're getting all the right pieces in place. And that's what they're doing. So for Sens fans, that was a breath of fresh air because we were all holding our breath. I mean, the Brady contract situation going all the way up to the season opener was some of the most stressful days we've ever had. And it was a blessing to have him signed and locked in for that opening day, even if he didn't play for a couple of games after.
Well, since he got in the lineup, it's been great. And the trajectory flies. You knew there'd be a slow start, a few games where you're getting your feet under him. He missed training camp, but he has been everything you'd want in a captain and more since then. He's got his first career hat trick under his belt against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the sky's the limit when you look at a guy who had 29 goals and 29 assists in this calendar year. I know we pulled it up yesterday, but in case you missed it on yesterday's show, the 2021 scoring leaders for the Ottawa Senators saw Drake Batherson. Yes, Drake Batherson, the guy who makes less than $5 million for the next 5 years after this one, 62 points in 79 games. This list doesn't surprise you, eh? The characters who made it?
No, not really. I mean, I would have guessed that these would be the 6 guys here. Maybe I would have spun the order on a couple of them differently before the season, but
Now, what were your other favorite moments, Ottawa Senators, this season? We've gone through a couple of them in depth, but just give me some rapid fire because I want to feel good here before we turn the table a little bit because there was some bad and ugly as well.
Yes, well, this one is kind of tied into the It Was 5-1 game, but this one sticks out to me because I just thought it was so funny. I was big of Genny Dadonov guy, right? Like when they signed him, I was so stoked. I thought this is going to be the guy who's going to be an elite sniper. He's going to be the finisher on the first power play unit. Yeah, that's another thing you can chalk up me being wrong about. But he was starting slow. He couldn't get going. He couldn't match the pace of this young team. What needed to happen, Ross? He needed to knock his whole front row of teeth out in Winnipeg. Remember, he slipped and it fell and hit his teeth up against the boards and knocked a bunch out. Well, what does he do after that? He scores a goal in Winnipeg, and then he scores the game-tying and game-winning goal in that Toronto game. And I feel like that was a big boost for him, and it was just a funny moment to see a guy like Dadonov with that toothless grin just living it up with those sellies. So that sticks in my mind as a very funny moment. And I'll pass it off to you, Ross, because I know we already talked about this one, but there are some funny goalie moments as well in this year as well.
Yes, I know that the easy one, and not to bear repeating, but Artem Anisimov, you didn't get to see him on the bench, but the photos, I'm going to lump 2 together, 2 moments together. The story of the traveling equipment of Anton Forsberg, because not only did we get the Artie party doing his butterfly and getting up, it was unreal to see that behind the scenes footage, but also remember earlier this season, it's so weird to call the calendar year 2 seasons, but that being said, Philip Gustafsson, his gear didn't show up to a road game, so he had to wear Anton Forsberg's mask, skates, pads for warm-up. That was hilarious.
That was so weird, yeah. And I just remember Ross being so nervous that he would have to get in the game with another goalie's pads because as goalies, we know, like, especially if you're a professional goalie that puts on the same equipment day in, day out, like any new equipment, especially the skates, would just mess with your flow and your rhythm and how you feel so badly. So sure, you got an NHL caliber goalie in there with NHL caliber equipment, but it's mixed match and he would feel very off. So I'm glad Gus didn't have to face that.
While we're sticking with goalies, I think Matt Murray would be a transition to the not so great of 2021. Well, I want to give a shout out actually to the end of last season, 12-3-1 when they got Shane Pinto into the lineup. It sucks that he's hurt, man. That guy was on such a great trajectory and we expect him to pick up right where he left off. Although I knew he was going to be the player that he was, and there's evidence to back that up, but to see him come into his own, and I say that jokingly because we are going to get into which player changed our opinion of them the most, and I have a couple interesting ones here, but before we get to that, Matt Murray, like a sub-900 save percentage in a calendar year for a goalie making 6.25, a guy who's going to make, in real money, $8 million in 2 seasons. Like that's a pretty disappointing story from 2021.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think, there's so many different facets of this story too. Like right when the deal was made, I think everyone was super stoked. But then the news came out about the extension and a lot of people did one of these like, whoa, like 6.25 million for 4 years. And this was one of those things where the Sens felt they had to pony up to get him to stay for a long term. And, in theory, it was a great decision, right? Like it didn't pan out, obviously, but like if you put it on paper, they're signing a 26-year-old goalie who has 2 Stanley Cups under his wing. He's coming off a down season, so he's available for trade. The Sens need some stability in net. They've got young guys coming up the prospect pipeline, looking to not be ready to take over, but to have a role in the NHL. And it should have worked, but the problem is Matt Murray's inconsistencies are linked to his health. And
but he was inconsistent even in his last 2 years in Pittsburgh. And you just
last
look
2 years?
Yeah. You look at the stats, like they weren't at the same level when he was winning Stanley Cups. You just look at the options that they had. Why not throw a little extra money at Jacob Markstrom, who ended up signing in Canada for less money?
I don't think Markstrom doesn't go. I think, and that's why it was important for them to trade for him, right? That was the big key.
They still had to sign. He was an RFA.
But he would have went to free agency, and I think he would have probably picked a different place other than Ottawa, even if the money was less. Like, I think I could see Matt Murray making a different decision there. So
he was RFA, so he didn't really have much choice.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So that's fair. But that's another kind of reason why the Sens were able to acquire him, right? And Pittsburgh was like, well, Jari and DeSmith, we like them, and we're going to draft 10 goalies in the next draft here as well. So, the Matt Murray situation, that was, I think, one of the most pivotal moments for this team, right? They really pushed their chips in there, and they fell flat on their face.
This is also pretty well intertwined with Matt Murray's struggles, but November. Like that's my worst moments of 2021. November 1, 10, and 1 in a calendar month. Oh my God, that was a struggle to do 20 episodes through.
That's a period of time where I wouldn't have mind another postponement or two, because it was
what was
depressing.
Worse, January 2021 or November?
November for sure, because January there was just so much hype. Hockey was back. We weren't sure what to expect from this team, but this year we had expectations. And if we're talking about mistakes of last year, that goes into my next one, is the proclamation by Pierre Dorion saying the rebuild is over. Now, I fully understand, and I think people need to appreciate this, is he used a bad choice of words. What he was trying to say is, no longer are we tearing things down and working on trading star players for future picks. That's what he wanted to say. However, he sat down that morning with his cup of coffee and said, I'm going to go out there and make a bold statement. And it wasn't a good idea. You can't bring those expectations, especially when you're bringing those expectations without backing them up. Like Ross, it would have made a lot more sense for him to say the rebuild is over last offseason, right? Like, he could have been like, we acquired consistent high 20s goal scorer in Evgeny Dadonov, and we locked him up for 3 years. We acquired a 2-time Stanley Cup goaltender, and we locked him up for 4 years. We brought in some veteran help on the back end in Goody and Coburn, and we got Paquette. We got Derek Stepan to really solidify the center of the ice here. Like, that's when he probably could have made that proclamation and been like, yeah, I'm backing it up here. But it was just so weird for him to do that after last season, what happened, and then this season saying the rebuild is over, and only going out and trading Dadonov for Holden. So you're losing a scorer and getting a veteran D. Sure, that's kind of a even out there. And then your only offseason acquisition was signing Del Zotto. And that's when you're like, all right, we're moving to a next phase here. Now we've got all the bases covered. Like, that was just, I think for me, that's the biggest mistake, because it put fans' expectations up, it put players' expectations up, and it just wasn't justified yet.
It's still early, and we are big proponents of patience when it comes to the drafts, but clearly a wide variety of scouts did not like what the Senators did in 2021 in July. Where are we at with that on the final day of the year?
I mean,
they've got a couple guys signed already, right? Tyler Boucher and Zach Ostapchuk both have NHL contracts.
Yeah, I think, and the story for this draft is amplified more. I now, in hindsight, I really love the 2020 draft. At the time, there was a lot of 2020. Yes. Yeah. The 2020 draft, I loved, but when it happened, there was a lot of like, this guy over this guy, really? Yeah. But the 2021 draft was that to the max. Like, Ross, go back to the second round when the Sens had those 2 picks and the players that were available that we were salivating over. And then they go and pick 2 guys for 2 Daily Sens podcasters that had been covering this draft like
we did a top 75.
I've never studied harder for anything in my goddamn life than the 2021 draft. And for them to take 2 players in the second round and trade and have they traded up, right? Or no, they traded back. They traded back. So to make a trade and the 2 selections they do we've never heard of was mind-blowing for me. And just a quick honorable mention of a mistake that I'm still sour about is not picking Atu Ratti with one of those second-round picks. I mean,
well, Francisco Pinelli was right there too. Like, they literally traded back, and then LA took him with that pick that I had circled. Ville Koivunen was right there, another guy who I was really high on throughout the draft process. The irony, though, is that our first, as we were doing our countdown, our first 5-star fit for the Sens was Tyler Boucher, but we thought at 39 or 42. And they took him back.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's the one thing. Like, I still I'm a Tyler Boucher guy, but picking him at 10 is still a little bit crazy.
PSA: someone needs to get Pilsy and I Ottawa 67s barber pole Tyler Boucher jerseys. We need that.
Yeah, I'm all over that for sure. Yeah, but the thing is, it was just classic Sens going for that pick, and you know it's going to take some time before we see how that plays out, but. Right now, the move for Boucher to Ottawa, I think that's a massive step in fans accepting him and going to see what he's really all about here.
I loved what Tyler Boucher said yesterday during his press conference about wanting to get accustomed to the area and saying, I'm so excited to be in the city of Ottawa. So cut him some slack, Sens fans. He didn't pick himself 10th overall. That's out of his control. But name a more dynamic duo. Ottawa Senators drafts and hockey elite prospects, and typing into the search bar right after the Sens make a pick. I'm pretty sure every fan has to do it on every selection. Who's this?
Yeah.
Who's this? That being said, Carson Latimer, we got to give a shout out to him. Sens 4th-round pick from the 2021 draft. With his new team, he's killing it, man. Did you see the numbers he's putting up?
You got him in front of you? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I've got them right here. So in Edmonton with a really great team. So that's kind of the trade-off here, right? You play on a great team. Maybe you're in a bit of a sheltered role. He had 6 goals and 2 assists in 18 games. Well, he's got 3 goals and 8 assists in only 8 games. Yeah. So 10 less games and 3 more points for Carson Latimer since joining Prince Albert and the Raiders. Rest in peace to John Madden there. But honestly, you look at what he's done, the same program that developed Parker Kelly. If you could get Carson Latimer into that shift-disturbing range, I think that could turn some opinions of the 2021 draft. But certainly when we look back at the year that was in 2021, the NHL draft has to be a big point of confusion where you're like, what did they do? What was the Galaxy brain thinking behind all that? Pilsy, we still have so much more to get to. Whose opinion changed most for you during this calendar year of a certain player or aspect of the team? And then we got to touch on the Belleville Senators as well. All that coming up. But Pilsy, you've got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Yep, now that Senators hockey is back, guys, Sens fans, get off the sidelines and get into the action at betonline.ag. Head there today, type it in, betonline.ag, make your free account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON. And that's going to get you a 50% welcome bonus. So how that works, you put $100 in, bingo, bango, bongo, you're going to get $50 in free play money. And you can use that free play money to bet on the Battle of Ontario in the NHL and the AHL, because Belleville and the Marlies are also matching up again. So it's a little too soon to be making those bets right now, but I know tomorrow I'm going to be waking up and I'm getting off the sidelines. I'm getting into the action because our trusted online sportsbook experts have, you can bet the over, which I highly, highly recommend in any Battle of Ontario. Hit the over. It just makes things more fun, and it usually hits. You can bet Sens money line, Sens puck line, Belleville Sens money line, Belleville Sens puck line. You can put them in a parlay. You can do it all at betonline.ag. So go there today. One more time, guys. Use our promo code LOCKEDON to get a 50% welcome bonus. It's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts.
All right, Pilsy. Can you believe that we've done 244 episodes in the calendar year of 2021 on Locked On Senators?
It is wild, yeah. But hey, time flies when you're having fun, right? And shout out all the people. I loved that day when the Spotify Wrapped
Yes.
were coming out and people showing us all the episodes and we're their number one pod. Like some people, shout out. I really should have their names, but Ross, you know me, not a great social media guy. But the people that listen to pretty much every single episode, there was like 3 or 4 where they showed their Spotify Wrapped and every episode they got like hundreds of hours of LOSP listened to. So you guys are the real MVPs here.
Yes, we know Pat Weldon's been listening since the Making Sense of
There we
Sense
go.
days, and he joined us on our first episode in 2021. Senators, hot takes, and the Sense Central Citizen. We did a Sense Central Citizen this week as well, so you can go check that out wherever you download your podcast or subscribe on YouTube. Again, 244 episodes this year, Pilsy. We'll have to beat that next year. Record numbers, doubling our downloads from 2020, which was a great year in and of itself. But that's 2.8 episodes per game because, again, the Senators had long delays, something we're used to here on this show. But yeah, so stick taps to us, Pilsy, as that's 67% of the days of the year that we've done this show. So
who else is doing this other than Locked On shows? So that's what we're doing. You want content, you got it.
Your team every day. And you can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central, on Instagram, Locked On Senators. Okay, we've been teasing this for a little while now. The most obscure Ottawa Senator, before we get to the ups and downs, are Senator Stocks, to steal one from our good buddy, Sens Central Citizen at Laleem's Martian. But Pilsy, who is your most obscure Senator? There's no like Marion Gaborik, Peter Bondra level guys, but there's a few where you're down the road. We're going to be like, wait, that dude played for the Ottawa Senators?
Should I take the irony pick or my actual pick?
I know Sean Foisey's already ready to come in here and chirp you for it, but you may as well. You know what? It's the last day of the year. Do whatever makes you feel good.
Okay, maybe I'll do both, but I feel bad if I took one of yours. But obviously, guys, for me to make a comparison, let me make that clear, that Tim Stützle would have a similar point trajectory as Derek Stepan. Not saying that they're the same players, similar styles, or anything like that. I was just saying I think he might have consistent 50-point seasons like a guy like Derek Stepan would. And then for people to hear that and run with it, and obviously it's a wild compare, like it's weird to have those two guys in the same sentence. And then for Ottawa to go out and trade for him was just like, that's poetic justice. Like that was, I thought I had escaped that narrative. I was like, okay, everyone made their jokes. Like we're past this. Thank God. But then for him to be acquired, that just resurfaced everything. And now I'm just steering fully into the ditch. I'm laughing at myself for this too. So for Derek Stepan to come to the Ottawa Senators, he's got to be the most obscure Senator for me.
But I have to laugh because after all the heat you took, in their first 82 games, they have the exact same amount of points. Derek Stepan had 45 points in his first 82 games.
Exactly. This is what I'm telling you guys. That's what I said.
For me, it's got to be Braden Coburn. Like this is the guy I've been watching.
My other one. Good.
No, I've been watching this guy in the league since I was in high school.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's an Ottawa Senator. I'm like, what? Braden Coburn? Didn't you already get basically the same player in Eric Gudbranson? Yeah. So it was obviously a head scratcher in itself. And then I'm looking at a couple of guys who returned to the Ottawa Senators in the year 2021. Am I taking yours here?
No, you're not. You're not. But I love that you remember
Ryan
this.
Dzingel and Tyler Ennis. Like the year of the reunion, it had to be. Especially the Dzingel one. Like when I remember the moment that Darren Dreger tweeted out, Senators about to acquire Ryan Dzingel. It was like, what? You know that gif of Dzingel where he's like,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
like,
all-time gif. Yeah,
what?
Definitely.
So, hey, he did his job, I guess, as a fourth-line guy, but certainly not the same impact that he made when he was scoring 20 goals back when the Sens were under Boucher and trying to make it to the Stanley Cup.
Hey, I'm a big zinger guy. Like he's fast, he's got a good shot, and he just seems like a fun guy. Like all the like videos of him mic'd up and stuff, he seems a good like positive, upbeat guy. Ross, my obscure Senator is tied directly to Ryan Dzingel because he was traded for him. How about Alex Galchenyuk coming to the Ottawa Senators and scoring one hell of a beautiful power play goal and then getting shipped out of town for zinger in return? That was just wild. I I still wish they gave Galchenyuk a little more leash. Like, do I think he would move the needle very far? No, probably very similar to Dzingel. But Zinger also, check out his shooting percentage for that season. Sure, he didn't play much and he didn't really make an impact, but he had a good shooting percentage for the Sens at that time. And I just thought Galchenyuk could have used a little more time and he might have been more exciting, but it wasn't meant to be. I just thought that was a weird one to see him in a 2D Sens jersey.
Ryan Dzingel, the sixth best shooting percentage in 2021, worse than Cedric Paquette. Talk about obscure. 9 games, 1 goal on 4 shots for Cedric Paquette. And he's even not first because Adam Gaudette, 1 goal, 1 shot. How are you in 8 minutes of ice time all year long? How about Josh Norris, the leading scorer on this team, having a shooting percentage of 18? Like, that's pretty impressive. Almost 1 of every 5 shots this guy takes is going in the back of the net. That's awesome. And he's close, but he's not a guy whose opinion, for me at least, changed the most. I could see him for others, but we saw in Belleville what this guy could do in the year 2020. So I left him off of my list of guys whose opinion changed. But for that, I've got 3 guys whose my opinion changed in a positive light. I got a couple of negatives as well, but let's do it positive first, as we like to do on this show. And I know we talked about most improved last week. How about Artem Zub going from taxi squad? I don't have to spend much time on it, but Artem Zub going from taxi squad to perennial top 4 defender. He's got to make my list as the number 1 choice. Number 2 on my list for better. How about Lassie Thompson, a guy who I thought was destined to be a tweener, maybe a top 6 sometimes, but Lassie Thompson has really changed the way I think of him as a prospect and beyond. And then for number 3, I knew what we were getting when the Senators got Austin Watson, but this guy, I didn't know that he would put his face in front of shots. And this guy, he's a warrior, and I love having him as the 4th line right wing. So I really changed my tune on Austin Watson. So I got Zub 1, Lassie Thompson 2, and then I've got Austin Watson at 3. I'll go with my negatives next, Pilsy, and then you hit me with your negatives, and then we can finish off. It'll be a nice positivity sandwich because we'll end off with the 3 guys that impressed you the most. Now, Matt Murray, to me, of course, he's got to make this list. Unfortunately, did not work out, and certainly my opinion has dwindled of what he can bring going forward in this organization. This next one, it pains me to say this a little bit because it's not completely his fault. He never really got an opportunity, but how high were we on Christian Wolanin going into the start of 2021? Like, we thought this guy was going to score 30 points.
Yeah, we went crazy on having him in the top 4. This is going to be his year. Finally, no one's in his way. He's not injured. And that one really didn't work out. So that was a tough one, especially a UND guy too.
I know. He's been on waivers as many times as he has points with the Ottawa Senators. 3 assists in 15 games over this calendar year. So he's got to make this list for me, unfortunately, as well. And then another guy here, and he was obscure for me as well, but I just got to touch on Ryan Dzingel again because you saw a bit of the magic. What did he score? Like 4 goals in his first 10 or so games.
And they were even strength goals too, I'm pretty sure. Like it was impressive when he came in hot.
Yeah, he really did. So when you look at what he started out with, I was like, oh man, like this guy's going to push for ice time, maybe top 6, top 9, and then he fizzled out right after. So that's my ups and downs in 2021.
Definitely. Okay, so if we're doing a positivity sandwich, I'll start with the negatives here. And speaking of waiver defensemen, Victor Mete, when he was picked up, like I really thought he was going to be a guy that kind of brought some stability. It was a young defenseman who had a lot of NHL experience, good skater, puck-moving guy, and we saw that in flashes at the end of last season. But he's just been kind of okay here, and now he's someone that I'm kind of okay with just dropping off or trading, or he's not really a part of the long-term future in my opinion. So that's definitely a guy there. Another guy, if we're sticking on some negativity here, I really had some high hopes for Chris Tierney as a guy who could fit in a 3rd line role. I mean, his first season in Ottawa, 39 assists, and we really saw he can dish the puck out. And I thought, the pace isn't there, but he can make that first pass and then catch up. And he he hasn't been able to really find line mates that work for him. Like I wouldn't say he's bad with certain players. Well, actually some players he is bad with, but in his position, he's just okay. Like it hasn't been much there. And I really thought that he was going to get a boost here, especially with Colin White going down, Pinto, like he was going to get an elevated role, and he started the season as Chris Tierney does with a bunch of goals early, but it just hasn't worked out in Ottawa for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, we would be remiss not to have for your third a guy who you said on the first show we did this year that he was going to be the best backup goalie in the North Division.
Yeah, that was hey, you wanted a hot take and I gave you a real hot one. And I'm a big I was a big Hogberg guy, like from the day this podcast started. I was so excited about him. Big Swedish goalie. At the time, he was Ottawa's only like goalie prospect, so there's so much hype around him, and he showed such a willingness to compete and to battle.
Yeah. How many OT losses there in
2019-20?
Like yeah,
and go back and find that one clip against Detroit where he makes like 6 10-bell saves in a row and keeps them in it. Like he just seemed like he had that it factor. He just needed time. So I thought he was going to be an amazing backup to Anders Nielsen. I thought it was going to be the starter. That's where things were at there. And he ended up being, I think, quite literally the worst backup. Not just in the division, but maybe league-wide. Like it was bad.
An .876 save percentage will certainly raise eyebrows and get you on a one-way ticket back to Sweden. Although we do hope that he's doing well. He seems like he's putting up good numbers with Linköping back in the SHL, .914 save percentage and .225 goals against average. But
nothing wrong with that.
That disintegrated in a hurry, that potential. All right, Pilsy, wrap it up here with 3 guys whose opinions changed for the better for you.
Yeah, I have one big one, and that's Anton Forsberg, a guy who kind of took Hogberg's spot there, because when he was picked up on waivers, he was just a guy, right? Like he was a guy they needed.
Guy with equipment for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. One size fits all, apparently, Anton Forsberg. But he, like, this season, he was the go-to goalie. And for a team that could only win once in its entire calendar month, to go to a guy who picked up on waivers as a third string type guy, and for him to string off 5 straight wins, including a shutout up against the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, like, it was impressive what this guy was able to do. Now, sure, he's had a couple stinkers as well, but for a guy who didn't cost you anything and wasn't really a part of this team's plan or anything, and now is looking like either you keep him for a little while or you trade him at the deadline for a nice return, because lots of teams need a guy like him. He's really impressed me. And then someone that definitely deserves a shout out here is Connor Brown. Like, when I would have never guessed that he would lead the team in scoring last year. Like, that was impressive. He broke franchise record for, was it 7 straight games or 8? I know Batherson had one of those records. I forget who had which record.
Yeah, good question.
But like, he was breaking records. He was scoring shorthanded goals. 8? Okay, perfect. And
Batherson had 7, and then Brownie one-upped him and 8. And how many of those were shorties? Like, this guy was unbelievable on the PK.
Exactly. He was good shorthanded, and he really made Sens fans and management comfortable walking away from the Dadonov deal. Like, I think if Connor Brown doesn't have that impact, maybe they're like, well, we got to keep Dadonov for a little longer to have one good veteran right winger here. But Brown changed all of that. So that's my loaf of bread coming in for the positivity sandwich there.
I like it. So lots can happen in a year. We know that. On Monday, we're going to have a Sens game to break down. Hopefully tee up the one against the Wild, although I'm not confident that that's going to happen. However, Hockey Night in Canada rules all, so expect the game to go on with only 1,000 spectators with the new Ontario restrictions in Toronto. And you could argue that only 1,000 people make noise in that building at the best of times, even when it's full. Yeah. But that being said, it's going to be great to see Sens hockey for the first time in 2 weeks. We got to see Belleville Sens hockey for the first time in about 2 weeks, and they deserved a better fate. They lost 5-2, but they put a season-high 47 shots on Joseph Woll in the Marlies' crease. What was your overall impression from not only a 5-2 loss, but Michael Del Zotto's B-Sens debut?
That was one of the most dominant performances I've seen the Belleville Senators put up. Honestly, like, they puck possession, shots, they were just dominating in all areas of the game other than the scoreboard. And it's tough because Tyler Parks, that's an ECHL goalie who's actually having a good year down there.
Catches the wrong way, though.
Yeah, weirdo. So that was tough when you're going up against a guy like Joseph Wall, who's an incredible AHL goalie. And the Sens, they couldn't buy a goal. And some bad timed goals by the Marlies really kind of put the momentum out of reach here, and they weren't able to come back. But I was very impressed with the team effort that Belleville was able to put forth after not playing for so long. And Michael Del Zotto, say what you want about him, but he looked pretty confident out there. Like he was making plays with the puck. He was getting pucks on net. He had an assist on a nice Scott Sabrin goal. So, for him, that's good that he's looking good down there. And I like him being down there with guys like Lassie, guys like Matt Genskinet. Like, it's just nice to have someone you can lean on and look forward to, as you don't have to weight all that shoulder on yourself for the back end there.
Good point. Sorry, the Senators, little news dump here before we get off. They've added 2 players to their taxi squad. So the Senators utilizing their taxi squad for the first time. Clark Bishop and Logan Shaw will join the Senators. So I'm assuming that's for the trip out west. Now, if it's only to Seattle or if everything is so up in the air, I guess that's what it comes down to. That's why it's great that we do Locked On Senators every damn day, Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you download your podcast and on YouTube. We've got a couple graphics we showed just to keep you up to date. Here's the list of postponed games, so you can see that on our YouTube channel as well. More Sens news that we touched on yesterday. Eric Brandstrom off the injured reserve list. So will he make his return to the Senators lineup? Really seemed like he was about to get an opportunity to play a bigger role, and then breaks his hand. So he lost that opportunity in a hurry. So really interesting to see what happens with Brandstrom in 2022. There's lots of questions in 2022. So we'll touch on that more on Monday. Pilsy, what would your overall, if you had to summarize 2021 as an Ottawa Senators fan, what would you try to break it down into one sentence?
I mean, the biggest thing is growth, right? Like, let's look at a couple, like Tim Stützle. Look at the growth that we've seen from when he first stepped onto the ice just one day after his 19th birthday. And from what we've seen from him over this calendar year has been incredible. His ability to shift to the middle of the ice at the highest competition level in the world and be able to improve his improvements defensively, all those kinds of things. The top line growing together as a trio and being one of the most dominant lines in the NHL. I don't even feel bad, or that's not a hyperbole. That's just a damn fact. And then I think you got to give some props to the coaching staff too, right? Like, they've been through some ups and downs, and they've stuck to their guns. They know the way they want this team to play. They've got their players to buy into it, and when they have, they've been successful. So I think really, to bring it all together, this has been a big season of growth. And I think really, big picture, there's been more positives than negatives. And Sens fans, there's reasons why we're optimistic, because we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel here, because a lot of these pieces are in place.
And hopefully the growth continues through 2022, not only for the Senators, but for Locked On Senators. Reminder, the postcast will return.
Oh, yeah.
The postcast will return after tomorrow night's Senators-Leafs game. I know there's lots of Sens fans, myself included, that were upset and disappointed that they weren't able to enjoy a matinee on New Year's Eve against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Was excited to head down to the CTC for that, but it'll just make it that much more special when we're allowed back in. And I said that a lot through 2020. And hey, I wasn't wrong. We had a great time at the opener against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if you have favorite, least favorite moments, put them in the comments. Likewise, if you have a player whose opinions change. A lot of people writing in Brady Tkachuk on Twitter, and that's a good one, although I always believed that there's more offense untapped there. He got that illustrious 300 season, 300 hits, 300 shots on goal, although it doesn't count as one season, but in an 82-game span, we're counting that for sure. So huge growth in the captain's game, but for me, it was the contract more than his play that really made it such a special year for Brady Tkachuk. So hopefully continued growth for everyone throughout this. Stay safe this holiday season. Happy New Year's to all the listeners of Locked On Senators. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate you listening each and every day to a team that was 29th in the NHL in the calendar year of 2021. But bright things ahead. Shane Pinto hopefully getting off the injury bug sooner rather than later. Jake Sanderson still dominating at North Dakota. There's plenty of reasons for optimism heading into 2022. On Monday, we're going to get our hot takes, Pilsy, just like we did last year, so that we can look back at takes like Hogberg going to be the best backup in the North Division. That's what hot takes are all about, just having some fun and taking a stab at that. We'll also go over some New Year's resolutions that we would assign to certain Ottawa Senators. And as I mentioned, we have a game to recap, not only tomorrow night on the postcast, but we'll get into that more on Monday. For today, we say goodbye. As I said, Pilsy, I'll let you say a word as well. Happy New Year, man. This is awesome that we're flipping the calendar. Hopefully 2022 brings everyone a little more happiness than this past year.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like we can turn the page on 2021. Who knows what 2022 has to offer, but as long as there's Sens hockey, the Locked On Sens podcast, we're going to have some fun around here no matter what happens.
For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.